Do it.
We're live. Good morning, Woodward.
Welcome to Caffeine and Cashflow.
Caffeine and Cashflow, episode 2.
How you doing, Matt?
Cheers. Doing good. So I was kind of just getting into it, talking with Woodward for a minute, but
You got a fun fact of the day.
fun fact of the day. So we are doing second episode up in Calumet, Michigan again. And so the bathroom that I remodeled here, I used all subway tile and kind of like that mosaic tile on the floor that's all thin set and grouted in.
White and black.
White and black. And the subway tile is all white. So back in the 1920s, I actually read this about why subway tile became so popular back in the 1920s, and that's really when it got its popularity. But subway tile became so popular at that time because that's when germs and bacteria were discovered. And so the theory was, and the idea was, you could see all the stuff on the walls, and that way you could clean it and keep it clean.
You knew it was dirty.
Yeah, and you knew it was dirty. So, and that's kind of funny.
So when people used to have wooden bathrooms, you couldn't tell if it was dirty.
All like the nastiness and all the wooden pores.
Terrible. Nope. Well, today we decided, since we're starting out, yesterday we kind of rambled, kind of touched on a lot of subjects.
We kind of went.
Who we are, what we've done.
Yeah, last episode. Yeah.
A little bit just to touch on it, and obviously we can go in more detail later. But today we're going to be talking about our first deal.
The first deal.
First deal, and anything and everything about making that jump, financing, finding it.
Like where you were.
But just mentally speaking, yeah, what pushed you?
Yeah.
It was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, like going.
I'm buying a cheap piece of property. I bought $78,000 piece of property, and
but still, you got started. Like
that was $15,000.
$15,000. What was it?
Who the hell has $10,000?
What was it? What was the story you told me about some guy who's like, I'm getting a $25,000 check, and again, like, kind of got into this a little bit yesterday with mindset, and once he started.
He worked for 20 years, and then his employee stock ownership program bought him out, and it was almost $25,000. And he was saying like how he's never had that much money, and he's 50-something years old.
Wow. Okay.
So he probably has that much money saved up in his 401k, but he's probably never had that much money in like a check written to him in his life.
So that's crazy, right? And that's like mindset around money. And this is where a thing that I think is huge, like with what's developed with my mindset around money, is that if you, so I'll give you this story. The story I'm going to talk about today, my first deal, was, are we good?
Yeah. No, all right. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
The first deal that I did, I don't think I told you the details on this yet. So the first deal I did, I bought about 2 years ago, and actually I recently sold it. So I got in and out of my first deal in less than 2 years.
2 years.
2 years. And so when I recently sold it, I sold it for.
What'd you buy it for?
Okay, so I bought it for $300,000
for a
triplex.
A 3-unit.
3-unit in Greeley, Colorado.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know what a triplex is. I found out.
Okay, so give them like what's the detail? Like what is kind of some of the terms that people use? So like
duplex, triplex, quadplex.
Yeah. So duplex, 2 unit.
If you're French, you know that means 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. Really?
No,
like,
we're pretty technical people. Yeah. So
get into the weeds. So duplex is 2, triplex is 3, fourplex, quadplex is 4.
People probably think we're stupid for even explaining that.
Well, whatever. It like even people just get into it. It helps
I don't know who's ever worked in a office environment and they get into a meeting where people talk in acronyms or use terms that they don't know. We're talking about this like a couple days ago, but you just want to reach over across the table and slap them because you're like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I know it's something remedial. Yeah,
just use the words because it's like people think it actually simplifies things, like, but it makes it more complicated.
Give me an RFI for the RD project for the.
Bam! Stop that.
Yep.
Okay, so back to so I got a triplex.
So this is part of the caffeine part of this cash flow cup talk,
right?
Yeah.
Caffeine mix in that 2 or 3 cups of coffee deep, but.
Anyway, so you bought a 3-unit for $300,000.
Bought a 3-unit for $300,000.
But how'd you come up with that original investment of is that $60,000 you had to put into it?
$75,000.
75.
75,000.
75% down, right? Or 25% down.
25% down.
Yeah.
70. It equated to $75,000.
Loan-to-value.
So okay, I want to get into that. So that's topic of conversation today. So where I was, it was kind of interesting, and I was talking to Woodward a couple minutes ago, but it's kind of fun to look back and see where you were mentally. And I remember it was December of 2016, and my wife was actually, she was doing May.
Pregnant.
Yeah, so she was like, 6 months, 5-6 months pregnant.
Starting to show.
Definitely starting to show. And so I had actually read, and I think I'd been working on a bunch of stuff over the years. Like I tried an MLM stuff, multi-level marketing, and it just was kind of a flop. I lost.
It's all crap.
Yeah, it was some crap. And I tried to sell this stuff, and I lost a couple $1,000s. It was more than that. It was probably like $5,000-$6,000. But I think that's even part of the process. Like
learning curve. I mean, hey, you pay $100,000 to go to college, and
yeah,
look what that got you.
I don't think I paid that. Well, I paid that
on paper. They say
degrees.
for like living expenses and all that stuff. But
anyway, that's a whole other topic we can get into.
Yeah.
In the past couple of days we got some really good topics.
Great topics.
We've got. We can go back, look at these, and figure out like what's our new topic. So
anyway, focus.
Caffeine. So it was December of 2016. My mindset was I was sitting here saying, okay. I constantly had that drive. I was like, I want to do something for myself. I want to start a business myself. I want to do something that's for myself, for my family, for my growth, that I'll be able to hold on to, no matter what, like in the years that I retire. And when I'd finished, working or whatever, I want something that was like, this is mine. I can hold on to it forever. And I read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And it was like, I read that in like a month, and I think there was like 2 or 3 people that recommended it, and then my wife actually bought it, and we didn't really talk about it. She read it like in like a week, and she's like, oh my God, Matthew, you need to read this book. And it's hilarious, but it's so practical towards understanding how money works and how your mindset works. And so I read that, and he talks about just creating wealth through real estate, and I was like, honey, we are buying real estate. And I remember that was December of 2016. And so I journaled about it, I wrote about it, and then I just said, okay, I'm gonna start digging. And the first thing I did is I literally started just calling people and networking. And I mean, even one of the things I talk about with my consulting business, I said one of the primary things that I feel like you have to start doing when you go into real estate is network. Like network is huge. You have to know people, you have to ask them questions. And so what I did is I started reaching out to people, talking to my friends, right? Like you and I started even talking about it.
Yep.
And so I started reaching out to realtors in my area. And I found one, and she was like, this was pretty funny. So I found one, and I sat down with her and her husband. They had a team, and they had some single families over the years that they'd gotten. And they sat down with me, and I kind of told them where I was at. I was like, I want to do this because I see where this is going. And they're like, well, have you ever done it? And I'm like, no, but I know that I can. And so much of this stuff is a mindset too. And I remember I sat down with them, and they told me the idea. This was funny. They told me the idea that they're like, well, you could do something like a cash out refinance on your house. And I was like, what's that? And they're like, well, you could do stuff like, it's pretty creative, but you can take equity out of your existing house and use and refinance and use that money as a down payment.
How old were you at this point?
30
years ago?
So 34.
34.
No, 33, because I turned 34.
So I guess another of how he got equity in his house was he moved out to Colorado in what year?
2011.
11, and he bought a house for $240,000, right?
Bought it for $240 in 2013.
2013, and then now we fast forward until 2016.
I had 4 years. I'd redone the kitchen.
And then now, what did that house appraise at?
So it appraised at 300 and I think it was 370.
When did your cash out refinance?
Yeah.
370.
370.
So basically, had an extra $130,000 in equity built up.
And so more kind of details in the weeds.
Yeah.
Most places will only give you like 70% loan to value. Some will give you that 75 and 80, but I feel like in my experience, when I talk to most people, most places, they only do the 70% loan to value.
You gotta find those real gunslingers if you want to find. If you go higher than 70. 80%.
So I had that situation working for me. I'm sitting here. I'm like, okay, I invested smart. I bought my house. I'd remodeled it. I'd put a lot of equity in it. So that's what cash out refinance means. You pull the equity. I put a bunch of equity by remodeling it into the house, and so you're able to pull it out. So I basically said, okay, well, let's start this process. She introduced me to the realtor that I had networked with. She's like, well, talk to this finance person, and it was a local lender. So I sat down with him, and he did this crazy analysis. And I mean, dude, like, I feel like I'm a technical guy, like I'm a pretty smart guy. You're a smart guy, and we know how to do like financial analysis. But
wicked smart,
right?
Yep.
A couple engineers.
Yep.
And then caffeine kicks in, and it's off to the back on track.
Yeah.
So I sat down with this local broker, and he broke things down on how like I could use my house. Like he gave me like 4 different scenarios on how I could sell my house and get like 3 other properties, or how I could refinance it and get 2 more properties, or how I could refinance it and get 1 and then actually get a bunch of cash. And I was like, holy crap. And he was like, no, what I suggest you do is you sell your house and you get a bunch of properties. And I was like, okay, like a little nervous.
Yeah.
But I think one of the things I forgot to say was when she told me this idea of doing a cash out refinance, my brain was like,
what's that?
Whoa. And you learn the details. I'm like, what? Like you're gonna tell me I'm gonna get a new loan and I'm gonna pull money out and have a higher loan? I'm like, that's crazy, right? And I think that's some of the stuff. That just goes into a lot of the stuff you're kind of taught growing up. Is like, don't take risks. Like don't pull out more than you. But if you do it smartly and intelligently, there's such a path to do it. And so that's what I ended up doing. I started going down this path where I talked to this broker, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna try this cash out refinance. I still was struggling with it in my brain. Like I'm gonna try this. And so what I started doing was I started looking for properties. And so this realtor and I, she started sending me stuff, and I probably went and looked at. It was probably like 5 or 6 properties, and and so then I was like, all right, I'm gonna make an offer, and I just almost like gave myself that goal. And this is one of the other things I did. Another great topic we can talk about is goal setting. Is I gave myself a goal that I wanted to be in a rental property by August of 2017. I closed on my property in June in 2017, so I was ahead of the curve. So we finally found a property. After several offers that didn't go through, we got this one, and I remember just sitting there one evening, and she texted me, and she's like, "Congratulations, you're under contract." And I was like, "Uh-oh,
game on."
Yeah, it was. It's game on.
Oh yeah.
And like that feeling, it's a like I'm getting like goosebumps now just thinking about it because I can go back to that feeling. But you're getting that moment and you're so excited, but you're then so nervous too. And I told my wife, she's like, well, you better figure this out. And it almost like when you do this, and I mean, I'd encourage people to do this, is start that networking, start, understanding this stuff. And then, make an offer, because it forces you to start figuring things out. I did not know exactly how a cash out refinance worked, but I knew that I had enough equity in my house that I'd be okay. And we walked through those scenarios of like what the payments would be, what I could do. And so come to the final details, and it was like we went to closing, and I ended up pulling out $75,000 out of equity in my house. So literally, right, money created from nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I pulled $75,000 of equity out of my house, put it as the down payment for this triplex, and then refinanced a new loan on my house. So then I closed, and I had 2 properties. And I was just like, wow, like that's like the analogy that you read about creating money from nothing in Rich Dad Poor Dad. I was like, I did it. Like I actually kind of implemented this stuff, and you can do this. You can repeat it and do these different things. And even some of the stuff we're talking about, like how we've got to refinance our properties. Mm-hmm. So I did it, and finally I got it going. But it was a process, like where I was in my head.
So when you bought your house, how much did you put down? Did you put 5%, 10%, 3.5%?
When I bought my initial house in 2013, I think it was only 5% down, and it was like
240. So
it was like $30,000.
Okay.
And so
it's more than 10%, but yeah.
No, it was only 10. It was like only 10%.
Well, so 30,000 probably was closing costs, yeah.
Yeah, so that was closing costs. So we had saved that up. We had, I had a full-time job I was working. I had some savings that we used, and we used that $30,000 of down payment.
And what was your job? I think that's another thing. Is like some people get confused on like how'd you get the enough money to do the first piece of real estate to buy. And I think a big part of it is, I mean, we went and got our engineering degrees, and I think that so many people I see, like my little cousin Pierce, he doesn't know what he wants to do, so he's just kind of was like, I'm going to take a year off from school. I'm just going to kind of think, live and just think about what I want to do. That's the worst thing you can do. If you don't know what you want to do, work towards a goal that's going to get you paid.
Or just work on a goal.
I mean,
right? Like,
you got to work on a goal that's going to put you financially where you have some options. Because I see so many people that like they don't know what to do, so then they're like, well, I'm just going to skateboard and smoke weed for the next 6 months and figure out what I want to do. Be like, well, how about you work towards a goal, and then at the end of the 6 months, you still don't know what you want to do, but now you're making $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 a year because you've had that fortress of solitude underneath you, and that like so many people starting out, they realize that there's just certain rungs you got to be on before you can go to the next rung, because like it's not like
Jim Rohn.
Well, like Arnold Schwarzenegger said, you can't climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pocket.
Yeah, dude, that's a good one.
But but I mean, there's so many people that they're like, well, how'd you afford that first one? How'd you do this? How'd you do that? It's like, well, you gotta
first build that base level.
Yeah, you just gotta build that base up, and then actually have like save a little bit of money.
Yeah. So like you were asking, I mean, you and I both went to engineering school, and I mean, you could go back even further of kind of like how we got on this path. And I remember being in high school, and it was like senior year, and right, you're like an 18-year-old kid, and I was like, I don't know what I'm gonna do, but there's one thing I feel like that I was pretty good at. Like I was good at math, and I knew how to like kind of do numbers, and kids were like, I remember being in a calc class my senior year, and it was actually it was fun. Like some people probably listen to that and be like, what is wrong with you? But numbers are just fun. Like they're fun. They're fun to run numbers.
Guys, there's cut and dry. There's rules. That's why I always liked it. When I'm writing a paper, like, well, you could have wrote it this differently or this. I was like, who cares? I was like, I'm getting the point across. Who cares who doesn't read that well? I was like, and people know what I'm saying.
Dude, a couple engineers talking, right? Like we don't care about words. Like numbers make sense to us. That's funny. So I think it goes back to where I was, and I started going down this path. I said I'm going to go to engineering school because I knew that engineers made a decent living. And then when I got out of school, we moved to Colorado. I got a good job. I was working as what they called a district engineer, and we were actually renting a place. We were renting the place, the first house that I bought. We were renting it, and then I figured out like buy a house. Like you're investing in yourself.
The same house that you were living in?
Yeah.
You were renting it and then you bought it from the lady?
It was really funny because she said, I told her name was Jody. I said, Jody, we're actually going to start looking at houses to buy. And so we looked at a couple, and she finally came back. She was like, well, do you want to buy this one? And I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, how much do you want for it? And she's like, well, and I knew the price. I knew like this area of where it was. And it was Colorado.
Berthoud, just by Boulder. Yeah.
And it was north of Boulder, Colorado. And you could kind of see what was happening in Colorado.
Yeah, especially even then, like real estate prices went up like crazy, but people, I mean, it was only 5-6 years after the financial downturn, so people probably were getting prepared for another one too, but
you could still get housing in 2013 at a pretty good price. So we bought the house at $240,000. And when we sold it, like this is crazy, I sold it for $449,000.
Yeah.
Like I made a lot of money on that. So another topic we can get into, but going back to where I was, I was just like, you force yourself to change your mindset and change your understanding of where you were, and you start going down the path and taking the steps. Like I said, network, understand the people you can work with, kind of understand your financial situation. I always like to say, know where you want to invest. For me, initially that was Colorado. I knew I wanted to get, just don't go in that area because I knew it. The second one was network, who can I network with to make this happen? And 3 is understand your financial situation. Is understand where you can go with your finance. So totally. those 2 things stick out in my mind. So that's where I was.
But yeah, even when stepping back to high school, I remember people asking me why I wanted to become an engineer, and I was like, well, or how'd you know what you wanted to do? I got that a lot when I started making money. How'd you know what you wanted to do? I was like, I didn't. I was like, I saw that engineering was the quickest. It was one of the highest paying 4-year degrees.
Yeah.
So I was like, I don't know what I want to do, but I'm gonna go get my engineering degree and go start making some money, and then maybe I'll have the financial independence to figure out what I want to do. I mean, I never thought real estate ever.
Cheers to that. That same thinking
is
what was going through my mind when I graduated high school.
I mean, that's the whole reason why I didn't play sports in college, too. I recruited to play sports a couple places.
Yeah.
And then I was like, you know what? But Michigan Tech has 100% job placement for their engineering program. And the starting pay is $55,000 a year.
When you're in high school,
and you're
$55,000.
I was like, I made $6,000 last summer. I'm like, I can't wait. I mean, I remember when $50,000 sounded like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Now you're like, wait a minute, that gets taxed, and I take home $25,000.
When your mind gets into real estate.
It's like I am still living in poverty, making $50,000 a year. You have enough to freely buy food and booze.
Yeah. And then have kind of a crappy place you can rent. But once you start to figure out
But yeah. Anyway, even then, so while Matt was going through that, I bought my first house in May of 2016. And my whole goal was to.
Okay, so hold on. So it was May of 2016.
And I've been working for full time for 3 years at this point.
Okay, so May of 2016. Back up, kind of leading up to there a little bit. Where were you when you bought your house in May of 2016?
I just wanted to. I had a Jeep Wrangler, and I was working on that thing all the time. I had fun working on it. I love working on cars, doing this, doing that. So when I went to buy a house, I was like, I need something that has a garage. Maybe a pole barn, that'd be sweet. And then I ended up finding a house out in the boonies, 15 miles from my work, and my work's in a podunk town. So I ended up buying that place for $82,000. And I remember thinking, okay, me and my roommate were paying $700 a month in rent. And I was looking at it, I was like, why would I want to buy a house for $150,000, $200,000, where my monthly payment is $1,200 a month or $1,000 a month? I'm like, that seems ridiculous. So anyway, I ended up finding this house for $82,000. Had a pole barn, 3-car garage, fenced-in yard.
All the things that you had that
all
vision
the things
for,
that I wanted to. I mean, I had some weird neighbors, but I mean, it was worth it. And so $80,000. I only put 5% down on that because PMI.
Wait,
$18.
Hold on. What's PMI?
Yeah. Oh yeah, PMI. Yeah. Property mortgage insurance, and it's a percentage of your. It's a percentage of your loan to get it to 20%, however much you still owe to get to 20%.
It's basically
it's a calculation somehow. It's 0.5% of something, and either way, I remember being like, wait a minute. I was like, I have to put down an extra $12,000 to get rid of $18 a month. I was like, I can take that $12,000 and put it in a crappy ETF or exchange rate fund on the stock market and make more than $18 a month. So I'm like, that doesn't make sense. But then my payment was $470 a month.
So your mortgage payment with PMI was
$470.
So that was PITI. PITI is
principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
Interest, tax, insurance. And then when you put less than 20% down in a house, then you have PMI.
Yeah, because that's basically insuring your mortgage to get it to 80/20. Basically, the bank doesn't want to take out a risky loan, and high loan to value loans are risky because if you foreclose on it, the bank has to turn around and sell it, and they want to make sure they get their money back.
Right.
So they're like, well, we can always for sure sell it for 80% of what this dope bought it for.
Yeah. Dope. So you purchased your house,
and then so right around that time, you're sitting there kind of writing me about rental properties because you're just about to buy your 3-unit, and I'm like, I just want to get out of my apartment and buy a house and just live on my own because I've actually, a fun fact, I never lived in a house that my family owned since 1997.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, and then so I remember like it was a big deal for me to have my own house, and yeah, so I was like, I was all excited about having my own house to live in, do whatever I wanted to do, and working on all the projects. That's where brewing beer, working on cars, boats, motorcycles, RVs, welding, woodworking. I built all my cabinets for my second house in that shop. And
learn to do stuff yourself.
Yeah, and being 100% self-taught. Just being in your shop and poking around. And I mean, for years, people were like, "You need to start a YouTube channel just to show what you're doing in your shop." And I'm like, sometimes I like to just hang out in my shop and blare music and do whatever.
So, but you do have a YouTube channel now, right?
Yes, I do.
Woodward the Landlord.
I'll probably post this on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we'll share them.
Yeah, and mine's MDT Consulting is my YouTube channel.
But anyway, so that was my whole mindset of just like, I want my own house to do whatever the heck I want to do, and no one can tell me difference other than my neighbors complain about noise.
Mm-hmm.
If it comes down to that. And then
so you got moved in, you got your house, and it was like $400 and some. So right, that's
like,
another point.
So I was like, I'm trying to live. I was also making probably $65,000 a year at this point, and I had friends that were buying like $250,000 houses, and I'm like, I was like, why would you want to do that? I was like, I could afford that, but then I wouldn't be able to save any money.
Yeah.
So the next thing I was like, I'm $400 a month. I can spend money freely on hobbies, and because I always want to do stuff. And
you won. Like, how much of a win is that? Where you sat there and you said, okay, I was paying $700 a month in rent. Now I bought my own house, and I'm only paying $400,000 or $400 a month.
Basically $500, but it's probably like $550 with utilities and everything like that. But still, that's peanuts.
Yeah.
And then a 10-minute drive to work, 15-minute drive to work, and it was that house was the best until the girlfriend moved in, and then she had a 40-minute commute, and then we had to find a new house. But that's fast forward 2 years.
Okay.
Anyway, so then I bought that house, and then Matt has read all these books for the previous 2 years, and he's trying to force me to read these books and this book, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll give him a read, because I mean, we only read for purpose. Mm-hmm. That I don't read for
I read for some fun sometimes.
Yeah, you do. I don't. Yeah, it was sort of, but so we just read for purpose, pretty much me. So first it was stocks, and I was obsessed with trading stocks. I used to do that when I was during that time, like when I had my house, I was obsessed with trading stocks.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I was thinking, I'm like, this would be great. I can trade stocks from anywhere. I can do it from my phone. I'll be a day trader. I'll make thousands of dollars a day. It'll be so exciting. And I tell you what, man, you take a few lumps and you're like, okay, there's the right way and the wrong way to do this, and I'm doing it the wrong way.
It's kind of like, I would say, like, you kind of find like stuff that you're good at. Like,
and even like you realize like those day traders they have a lot more advantages that are actually successful, and you being on your phone while you're working, it's not it's not a recipe for success in day trading. But then so it's kind of like the stock market phase. Like, everyone who starts trading stocks is obsessed with it for the first 3 months. All they want to do is talk about stocks and this and that. And I looked at this one, bought this, bought that, and it's like, I bought this one for a $0.015 a stock. It's great. But I can't go down from here. But it does.
It does.
And then so then you realize, okay, there's got to be better avenues. And then growing up in Mackinac Island, every single person that had extremely wealthy and generational wealthy had real estate. And my friend's dad told me that 89% of all millionaires in the U.S. made their money off real estate.
I've heard that same thing, that more millionaires and more generational wealth have been created through real estate than any other sort of.
And then so you're like, okay, well, if I want to become a millionaire, I should probably, comes back to the engineering mindset. I should probably do the highest statistical thing to get me there to be a millionaire.
Yeah.
So then I remember looking around, and I ended up just looking on Zillow to try to find stuff, and Zillow's usually pretty picked over, and by the time it gets to Zillow, friend's dad, who owns a couple hundred rental properties, I never really talked to him about rental properties until after I bought my first one. But he told me that he's like, by the time it gets on the MLS, it's not a deal anymore.
Yeah.
He goes, because people like say, I'm in Lansing now, own some properties down there. If I want to sell my properties, I'm probably gonna call up my buddy that I've been hanging out with.
But getting started, you can still find stuff on the MLS.
Yeah, you can still you'll find something that looks on paper like it's like, oh yeah, I got 20.
MLS. What's the MLS?
Multiple listing service.
Okay.
That's basically what Zillow pulls from. Yeah. And then so I ended up finding that deal like in this podunk town, Corona, Michigan. They were asking like $80,000 for this 3-unit. It only rented for $13.50 a month. Not stellar, but then I went but everyone
Was that
around
the first
it,
one you found?
Yeah, first one I found. And then but places around it, I saw that these 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom apartments were going for like $650, $700. It's like, oh, I could bump these rents up, and then now I go from like a 20% return to or like a 15% return to 25, 30, 35. I don't even know what it is, but just when you run the numbers, you can make it say whatever you want to say.
So you found a 3-unit, and what was the price on it?
They were asking like 82 or 80, and I ended up getting it for 76.
Okay, 76. And so then,
and they paid $100,000 for it 10 years ago.
What, really?
Yeah, so it's gone like that. I mean, in Podunk Town, Michigan, real estate prices, it's still.
See, and that was like people like the hype of real estate. And I think this is a great topic we should probably talk about is like sticking to things that work, sticking to your numbers, making sure it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there's a lot of people I think are doing that stuff today. They're finding stuff that is super expensive, and they're just like, well, let's get it. And you're like, dude, this is not making money.
Yeah, there's nothing on the MLS right now that makes sense to buy. You literally have to have somebody that's finding it. Like, it has to be the first hour it's on the market, or the realtor that that's going to list it, and you're like, hey, you want first dibs with this?
Mm-hmm.
Or I don't know, we have plenty of stories about that. But anyway, so I guess we'll back up a little bit about someone buying that. And then my friend Zed also said, he's like, the reason why you need to buy a piece of real estate working a W-2 job is legally you can show up to $25,000 of losses per year, and that can offset income on your W-2 job. Mm-hmm. So say if you're making $75,000 a year, you only get taxed on $50,000. So pretty much that's almost basically 30% of 2,500, or 25,000. So that's $7,500 a year. And so if you're going to get a $7,500 raise at your work, that'd be a $15,000 raise on your bottom line. So so if I buy this piece of real estate,
I love instantly your brain starts to work in that.
Yeah, it's like, well,
those numbers.
Yeah, it's like, well, since I bought this real estate, my income at work has now gone from $65,000 a year to $80,000 a year, like that.
Just by buying.
Just by being a piece of real estate, because even if that real estate makes zero money, say you had a bunch of repairs come up and it ate your bottom line, and you actually made $0. Well, you drove all over the state, that year you drove over looking for, so now you drove 20,000 miles, say, looking for, because wherever you go, you're looking for real estate.
Yeah.
I just drove 1,000 miles. This is going to be a 1,000-mile trip up to here. And we went and looked at some properties to buy.
Dude, how funny is it? Like, your mind gets into that where you're like, oh.
And then so now everyone's like, well, that doesn't seem legal. I'm like, it is.
It is legal.
Yeah. And then so like, okay, so then like $20,000, that's 55 cents. That's like a $12,000 deduction.
Yeah.
So now you have a $12,000 loss for miles that you were going to drive anyway, but you just, on your trip, you looked at real estate property. So you're like, all right, and now you might buy something here, and then, okay, you had to buy some tools, you had to do this, you had to do that, and then you also depreciate the building. Mm-hmm. So if you made zero money, the depreciation, cuts down. Anyway, there's so you. Oh yeah,
so we went down like such the benefit of real estate. Okay, so go. I want to know.
So I'm saying, so your first piece of real estate, that's why I say anyone, if you're working a job, you need to buy a piece of real estate, and your first one doesn't matter, like the price and the return doesn't matter as much, because you're just stepping into the
well, you want to make sure
tax benefits.
It works
world. You have to make sure it works. I mean, make sure you get it looks like on paper you're gonna make money, but there's a high chance you won't. Because the guy's probably selling it because it needs a new roof or because something's happening,
but you can still find, you can definitely still find. There's so many places out there you can still find it works.
Yeah, for sure. But you just need that first one is what gets you to level up.
Yeah.
Get the next run.
Okay, so your first one. So kind of talk to me.
And that was in April of 2018.
So 2018, and you bought your first house when?
In May of 2016.
May of 2016.
And then so I basically had to save up, $15,000, something like that. Because when you buy a piece of real estate, also as well, I bought it on like the second of the month.
Mm-hmm.
So then they had to transfer all the rents and all the security deposits, and basically it was, you know, they prorate the rent, but it's 29 of the 30 days of the month. So pretty much, I thought I was going to have to bring almost $16,000 to closing, and next thing you know, it's like, okay, well, that just like security deposits were $1,500, the rents were almost $1,500, and you're like, wait a minute, you're like, now I have to bring like $12,000 to closing.
Gets you like $4,000 with all the
and you're just
rents,
like, well, it's like that was nice.
Yeah. Dude, that is another one that's so funny. Like every piece of property that we've closed on, there's like all these like extra money that flows in. I was like, oh, like I kind of forgot about that with like all those rents and all those like security deposits.
You plan on 20-25% or whatever, and it ends up being less.
Okay, so when you got this place, it was May of 2018. It was a 3-unit place you bought for $77,000. How much did you put down?
20%.
20%. Okay, which was what, like you said, like 12,000.
Yeah, it was like 15,600 or something like that. It was 78,000, so it's 15,600. But it ended up coming down to like $13,000 or $12,000. You know, once you subtract that, add in closing costs and, you know, any other, you know, stuff like that. But and then so got that, and then I remember thinking like, I went and knocked on the door of the tenants like the day I bought it, and be like, "Hi, I'm your new landlord," and you know, I'm like kind of like all nervous and giddy, and I was like, "Hey, you know," I was like, "Hey, if you need anything, you know, like don't be afraid to ask, you know, I'm a nice guy, you know, I'll come by and whatever." And he's like, and then the tenant's just like, "Okay," and then I'm just like, I'm a weirdo, and then God, I remember he said something. He's like, I actually have a rent for next month. He's like, you just want that now? I'm like, but okay. And then so I went and knocked on the guy's door, and then he goes in and hands me $500, and then I had my girlfriend in the car, and so like we go to leave after. That's the last tenant I talked to, and then I go, he just gave me $500.
Oh my God.
I was like, this is great. And then I remember because I remember being like kind of nervous getting those keys and kind of being like, you know, and then a little nervous pervis.
Dude, but that's so like that's a perfect, like I love that stuff because I feel like on a daily basis now, this is stuff, you know, we talked about in our last episode. We talk together so much. Yeah. And on a daily basis, we each have these stories. Caffeine and Cashflow. I love it. So, but we each have these stories about like, of what we've discovered in this process. And you know, I think one thing that we've also talked about, I mean, this is one of the things, can I have a little bit of little cream? Splash? A little cream. You can go get a little bit more. A little bit more? Jesus. But that's one of the things we talk about is like how we figure these things out in the process. Dude, and there is a quote that sticks in my mind, and I will just kind of touch on, but it's almost for listeners out there, keep this one in the back of your mind. But it's almost like it's not what you get in the process, but who you become. Right? Because now, like who you've become, think about that. You were that like nervous pervis holding the keys down, like I have $500, and now you're like, all right, like we're down to business. I need this rent, and you're just going. Like we're so much into this business now that you're just it's automatic, and we've become good at it. Yeah.
But then I guess so then I bought that 3-unit. You had your 3-unit at that time, and then we're kind of like, hey, maybe we should partner up and buy something else because we were finding deals here and there.
And you get into the mindset, and you're like, ooh.
Yeah. So anyway, fast forward 2 months, and I'm like bored at work, and I was like cruising on Craigslist, and there's a 2-sentence ad that said like, I have some rental properties for sale, willing to do seller financing. If you're interested, call this number. And I'm like, okay, you know, call it up. And he's like, yep, here's the address. Swing down 11 a.m. tomorrow. I'm like, all right, I'll be there. And I swing down, and it's the First National Bank of America building. And I'm like, this is not where I meet people on Craigslist. And apparently it's the owner of the bank. And they foreclosed on a boatload of properties in 2008, 2009. And that's how we ended up coming across the properties that we bought together.
The 7 years.
And then so some people are like, how the heck were you able to buy more properties? Because I mean, I shelled out that $15,000. And I was, you know, after buying a house the year before, that's pretty much what I had saved up.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, well, I was like, my first several years at work, I maxed out my 401k. So I ended up taking like a $22,000 loan out from my 401k to buy those properties.
The ones we went in.
We bought. And then so Matt, he just had boatloads of cash. So he threw $20,000 in because we ended up buying those 7 units for $200,000.
Yep.
So they want us to do 25% down, but since they own the bank, this guy owned the bank. And I realized this is such a unique situation. No one's probably ever going to have that same situation ever again.
Well, dude, no.
You never know.
Like, you never know. You could come across a banker that's like, all these properties, you want some?
No, it wasn't a banker. It was the owner of the bank. And they basically like foreclosed on all these properties and started a property management business. And now they're like, well, we're only buying 100, 200, 300, 500 unit complexes, and we want to sell these little properties just because there's when a little annoying problem happens, we just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
But we ended up buying those, and then basically he had probably 12 properties for sale. We picked the top 2, and then my girlfriend's little brother was playing professional football at the time, and he saw what I was doing, and he's like, I want to get on this real bad. And he just started his first year.
It's kind of funny when you're doing this stuff and people are like, how are you doing that? And you're like, come on, like, we're doing it. We'll show you.
And then, but he was just like, hey, I'm super nervous about buying a piece of property because I'm about to get picked up by another NFL team. He played 1 year, got hurt, and he got picked up again. Yeah. And he's like, well, he goes, if I do this, he's like, can I depend on you to manage these? I'm like, yeah, sure, let's do it. So then he bought another 12 units. So we bought 7 units, and then there was 3 buildings side by side, and he ended up getting those for like $295, 12 units. So pretty much in Lansing, when I tell people like you got to spend $25,000 per unit if you're gonna make any money, but people are buying $40,000, $50,000 per unit right now, and it's just, I'm like, I don't understand how they're making any money.
But yeah, dude. So
that's how it went from me having no properties to fast forward 3 months, and now I have, my fingers in 10 units, and I'm managing another 12 for my girlfriend's little brother, and all of a sudden it's like now I just went from having no passive cash flow to having probably $1,500 between my rental, our units, and then another $800 a month coming to 10% from managing those things. And it's like holy crap! I just I might have just spent $35,000, and then now I have an extra $2,000 a month coming in, more than that, 20.
So like this, we should probably
I feel like that's an unrealistic, people don't level up that fast.
Yeah.
But
it's possible. Lots of people do. I mean,
I did it.
I think we're both
people always
cheers. Yeah. I think we're both working on that process, and I mean that's why our motivation almost just for doing this is because we can talk about our experiences and talk about how, though we're just kind of like getting into the weeds of how we're doing this, and if anything, for listeners out there, just understand that there is a way to do this. I mean, not every way is going to be the way we did it, but there's definitely a way to go from 0 properties to, 20 some properties.
Now I have my fingers in 32.
In 32, yeah, and I'm about to close on 6 more at the end of this month, and I'm gonna be like, I think at 30, at 31.
Yeah.
And there's a path. There's a path to do this. There's not a perfect process, but you just kind of got to go along with the way. And I think one of the other things, like kind of closing remarks that I was thinking of is, if you think about this, like the properties that you have, they're on 20, 30-year loans, and eventually that is such a motivation for me to do this, is because with real estate, you are playing. In investing, you're playing the long game. Like even short term, it's I got $500 from my tenant, and that's so exhilarating. And then you constantly creating cash flow, and then on top of that, down the road, those assets are going to be paid off, and they're just going to be funneling money into you because of the rents, but also the fact that you can sell them and just get a huge chunk of cash. Granted, you're going to pay tax on it, but there's all these different strategic ways on how to...
Google 1031 exchange.
Yeah, and I actually...
Just Google that, yeah. Matt got screwed over because...
I don't think
learned a lesson.
Yes, I learned a lesson. And I actually...
Have a deal in the hopper when you go to sell. Otherwise...
Well, it's funny. I feel like we did. And that was... I was talking about my Colorado property. Yeah. I ended up selling it. And I had deals lined up and they just fell through. Like things kept falling through, and that's what ended up happening. And you know, that's some of the things that happen. But sometimes, you know, I have a 1031 exchange deal. It's not a bad problem to have where I get a ton of money.
Yeah,
and you didn't get to put
worst case scenario is I get $100,000. Best case scenario is I get 120 or 140 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
It's like, but yeah, you're obviously not trying to pay those taxes because.
Right. So I'm gonna have to pay tax on it, but it's not a bad
taxes
problem.
are astronomical. You know, we both grew up. It's kind of funny, like how we were both in college, super liberal. Mm-hmm. We were beating the Bernie Sanders drum. Yeah. And I mean, I think we still have a lot of social liberal. Yeah, we're still very socially liberal. But then now it's like when it comes to finances, you're like, you have to be conservative.
Yeah.
And how quickly, just because we made some smart decisions, you're like, why can't other people make some smart decisions and do what I did? Dude. And everyone's like, well, I don't want to do what you did.
Yeah.
I want to just keep living in my parents' basement and not have a job and get something paid for. I'm like, well,
that's great.
I don't even have that luxury.
Yeah.
Ever.
Well, I mean, like, I think I could have done that. I could have like lived in my parents' basement forever, but I was like, no, I'm gonna be. And I mean, dude, that's mindset. That's reading the books that you're doing and learning, and I think that's what each one of us strive for. And I think it's like we talk about this as people in your circle, and I think we mentioned this on our last episode about how you are like the 5 people you surround yourself with, like whether or not you think like if. And I mean, this will sound bad, but like, dude, if you're hanging around people that are just going to bars every night and just
we were those guys at one point.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah, like
we were
going to
like
bars.
So we're not talking down on those people. We're just saying you got to evolve at some point.
You got to evolve. You got to grow.
I mean, at some point you're like, okay, I can only. You know, I remember my mom when I was like 17. She's like, "Son, going through life drunk and high is not a way to live." And then it's like now
stupid mistakes.
I was like, now I like bring that up. I'm just like yeah, because there's still a lot of my friends that are going through life drunk and high when they're 30 years old, when you should maybe start trying to establish yourself. Just a little security. I mean, you know, and it's fun. You know, everyone's like, oh, I don't care about money. I'm like, I don't care about money either. I care about free time. Yeah. And money gives me free time.
I care about having the life that I want.
Another thing is like we mentioned how we're also have very addictive personalities a little bit. You know, like we're doing 110%, mm-hmm. and it's like that's also how I think we were able to level up so quick. Like there's a lot of people that would probably pump the brakes mm-hmm. when we just bought properties, and then all of a sudden, now I'm gonna go from 3 units, my first 3 unit 2 months ago. Haven't had an issue come up. I was over there like mow lawns, and I'm like, is there something else I should do? I
feel like I should be doing more.
I was like, I feel like I need to do something. And it's like I just had a tenant, give me another, $600 here, $500 there, $400 there. I was like, there's something I need to be doing right now.
Okay, dude. So let me ask you this, and this is because this is what goes through my mind. Is I always go back to a couple engineers. My mind operates with systems and processes. When a system is working, we don't have a dialed in specific this to this, but there's a system here, and I would call the system real estate investing and cash flow.
Pretty technical term, yeah.
Caffeine and cash flow. We're creating cash flow, but we've created some understanding and processes and systems in place that we're like, oh my gosh, this is repeatable. If you there's definitely repeatable things on understanding money, understanding how finance works, understanding to me, like I was saying, that know where you want to invest, know your network, know your financial situation, and it's big high level systems. But then when you start to go in, you can kind of break those things down and do what we've done.
Yeah, and then so people look to naysay and say what I'm doing isn't realistic and this and that, but things as we just walk you through about how it's just one step, and then once you step through one door, now you have to hang out there for a little bit before you can actually go to the next one. But when things happen, they just keep going and they snowball, and then
you find another door.
Yeah, and then people also like to be around successful people. So I started talking to people back home that I grew up having no money. I used to help my mom pay rent and stuff like that. As soon as I started working, and then now I started talking to, friends' parents and, other successful people in the area. Just like, I'm like, hey, can I buy you lunch or something? And we just talk about real estate.
Yeah.
And then it's like coming out of that lunch, and they're like, "Yeah, if you find a piece of property, like I trust you, Woody. I'd give you $1 to $2 million. It's like I'll give you $1 to $2 million for the right deal." And I'm just like, $1 million.
Really?
I was like, that seems like, and then there's like those guys shrug because they also have that that real estate attitude of, if they lose money, they can laugh
You
about
can
it.
make it back.
Yeah,
Or you learn. You learn.
It's like, but they know that like I'm not gonna lose money.
Right.
Because you're buying real estate, and pretty much if you're gonna lose money, you pretty much have to just hold on to it longer.
Yeah.
To pay it off. But I don't know. There's I don't know. I mean, there's just so many.
There's so many different avenues and kind of ways that you can go about doing this, and I think that was what I think our big topic was today was.
We're just getting the ball rolling.
Yeah, like kind of figuring out how to do this process and kind of what you're going through, and so maybe for next one we can talk about more of kind of going from the situation of how you got into your first deal and then how you leveled up again.
Yeah.
Well,
I also want to say like this past spring.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend's little brother, that girlfriend. Yeah. She's got. Take the dog out. Just a quick thing before we end this here, but. So he was playing professional football in like that spring league in Texas, and getting shut down, but he was getting paid $10,000 a week. So.
It's getting crazy around here. Real estate investors.
Hey, we gotta wrap this up. But the month of March, I got my tax return back, which is like almost $8,000. I got my bonus, which was about another $8,000, $9,000. Mm-hmm. I sold my house, which was a $22,000 check. And then when we we already bought another house in February and then sold my house. Mm-hmm. And then I got 3 paychecks that month too, because 2 months a year you get 3 paychecks. Mm-hmm. So you get paid every 2 weeks. There's 26 paychecks in a year or whatever. So then I was talking to my girlfriend's little brother. I was like, "Hey, you want to hear something funny?" And he's like, "Yeah, what's up?" I go, "I'm gonna make a lot more money than you this month." And he's like, "How is that possible?" Because he's like, he's making $10,000 a week. Yeah, he's making $10,000 a week, and at my job I was making $1,500 a week or whatever, or less than that, $1,000 a week, and it's just like I counted it up, and I was like, "Good Lord!" And I was like, "Yeah, I took home $40,000 pretty much."
Yeah,
and I was like, so pre-tax, if that was all pre-tax dollars, that would be like $70,000 in a month, just about. And I was like, that was my yearly salary, and I made it in a month. Just from selling my old house. That you hold it out for a couple of years, and it sold for $20,000 more. Mm-hmm. And sure, you get some of the money that you paid off, but that's always peanut. Basically, what you paid off during that time, and some for a few years, basically just offsets realtor costs. Yeah, because realtors are pricey, but so it's kind of funny. So now then, this year. Ended up buying another 8 unit just from. It was next door to a property that we owned.
We got to do an episode.
We got to do one, but this one just
story.
Yeah, we just.
I want to hear that. I want to hear that whole story on an episode. That is so good. Like I've told that story to so many people, and they're like, "Dude, that is awesome the way you do that."
But basically, all you know is it was an 8 unit, not on the market, and we bought it for $200,000. And everyone, when people are spending $50,000 a unit, I'm like. We could, I was like, so right now we could turn around and sell that thing for $350, no problem,
dude.
And would just this old guy that he was in our shoes.
Let's keep it like that.
That's
good. Another good one.
Until next time.
Yeah, until next
but
time.
Anyway, so
all right, dude.
Well, caffeine and cash flow.
This is fun. Getting into kind of the weeds of how we got started.
Yeah, and this is about pretty much all the time we have until got hit the toilet.
Wow, what a way to end. All right, everybody.
Yep, coming to you from Copper Country.
Copper Country. Next one, we have to figure out a new place to do it.
Yeah, we have to come down. We'll just have to meet up on the weekends in Midpoint.
That's it.
Well, next week, coming from the top and back in our bridge.
Maybe.
Yeah.
All right. Cheers, brother.
Yeah.
See ya.